Welcome back. Thanks for staying with us. As Eskom battles to supply South Africa with reliable electricity, just yesterday, Mineral and Energy Minister signed a deal with 3 wind power producers. Some analysts say this move has come too little too late. Well, joining me now to expand further on this, I'm joined by energy expert Professor Mark Swilling. A very good evening to you. Is it really too little too late?
Sorry, I didn't hear you.
Is it too little too late? Does this move come at the wrong time?
No, I mean, nothing can be too little, too late. We are going to be faced with load shedding for the next 2 years while we ramp up the renewable energy generation capacity, which is connected to the grid. So this is a step in the right direction. It's a contribution to what still has to come. We need to build up to at least 5 gigawatts per annum for at least the next 20 years.
So energy producers have 60 days now to reach a financial close and then 24 months to initially build. And considering the many hiccups we've had with other projects, do you think that that period is sufficient for this project?
Well, it can take 2 years to build a wind or solar plant, and so we can't really expect it to be shorter. But what we can expect to be shorter is how long it takes to bring to financial close all the other projects, all the other shovel-ready projects which have been approved in bid window 5, as well as the projects, the embedded generation projects. So those need to be speeded up. And so this is a step in the right direction, but it doesn't have to take this long to reach financial close. And that's got a lot to do with the problem of the prices being too low, given the rising costs of the equipment that needs to be ordered.
You say that it can never be too late, but perhaps where I was going is that Minister Gwede Mantashe said that he was on the Eskom board when it was doing really well from 1993 to 1997, and at the time, Eskom had warned government that by 2007 already they would need to build new power stations to avoid the current situation that we find ourselves in. Speaking to a plan that needed to be fast-tracked years ago.
So what happened in 1998 is that the white paper that was published said we need to start building new generation capacity, which never happened. And in 2008, the president, which was Thabo Mbeki at the time, apologized to the nation for not listening to Eskom. The government delayed the decisions because it felt that private investment and private operators should build new power stations and not Eskom. And so it was delayed and delayed and delayed until we had the first load shedding experience, the end of 2007. And then there was rush to procure Medupi and Kusile, the 3rd and 4th biggest coal-fired power stations in the world. To rush those kinds of massive engineering construction projects is a recipe for disaster. And we sit with some of the consequences now. They've cost far more than they should have, and they're still not performing like they should.
And you're in New York. The UN General Assembly is underway. We know that President Cyril Ramaphosa had to cancel his input there and participation. What are some of the topics that are coming out that really speak to some bold moves and perhaps some intricate conversations that we should be having here in South Africa?
Well, obviously you're going to have the usual general commitments to climate action in terms of the Sustainable Development Goals, to speed up action that is going to mitigate the consequences of climate change as well as contribute to adaptation. So you have more of the usual. But what really matters for South Africa is the way in which the commitment made by the donor nations at COP26 at the end of last year to $8.5 billion contribution to help accelerate the South African transition. So there's been discussions about that in various fora. And we all are awaiting with great anticipation Daniel Manele's report. He's the leader of the Presidential Task Team on Climate Finance, which needs to go to Cabinet, which maps out South Africa's plan for how that 8.5 billion should be spent. So Daniel Manele was yesterday on a panel. I was also on that panel where we were discussing, the way in which this plan should be implemented, which should be on South African terms, not international terms. And we need to make sure that donor nations contribute funding that is on terms that we require. And there's still some debate about that. I have my doubts whether we're going to get that funding on terms that are suitable for South Africa. We don't want to incur debts to foreign banks when we could fund quite a lot of that ourselves.
Mm-hmm. And just going back to the 3 wind energy projects, as you speak about additional funding and more capacity that's needed to help South Africa and really address this electricity crisis, how much of an impact after the 24 months when these energy projects are done and dusted, how much of an impact will that mean in terms of capacity for the grid?
Well, you see, the fundamental problem is that Eskom needs to repair the worn-out machines that generate electricity, but it can't do that without switching them off and taking them off the grid and really doing the job properly, because there isn't any additional capacity to create the space for that. We would have more load shedding if they took off more of those machines to properly fix them. However, in 2 years' time, when there's more generation capacity on the grid, that creates space for Eskom to do the actual repairs that everybody is calling for. So renewable energy generation is not just significant from the point of view of additional electricity generation capacity. It actually enables Eskom to do the repairs and maintenance that are required to really bring those machines back, not just into operation, but into effective operation at higher energy availability factors.
With the need for more capacity being something that isn't new, something that was known already, just going back to perhaps why we may have experienced so many delays. My understanding was that the renewable energy boost was already meant to be connected this year.
Yeah, but so in 2015, 2016, we had CEOs of Eskom who refused to sign the power purchase agreements for 5 gigawatts of shovel-ready renewable energy projects. If they had signed, and I'm talking about Brian Molefe and Matefe Koko, if they had signed those power purchase agreements, 95% of our current load shedding would not exist, according to Meridian Economics. And I think that is what we need to focus on. There were serious mistakes made back in 2015. At the same time, we need to acknowledge that what Minister Mantashe is doing at the moment is the right thing, but it's too late. If he would have done what he's doing now in 2019, we also would have had much less of a problem.
And a lot of criticism was mounted on President Cyril Ramaphosa with a lot of pressure. As soon as he left Queen Elizabeth's funeral, coming back home, opposition parties alike and South Africans were really saying that it's all very well to have brought out a plan, but how will it be implemented? How is that process going to work?
Well, I mean, we have a very complex system which has been pushed to extremes. And no matter what he would have done on his return, it's not going to stop load shedding tomorrow. So it's unrealistic to expect that you're going to have instantaneous solutions to very deep problems that have causes that go way back. So I think that the statement that the President made in July was a significant breakthrough. It was a game changer. And we have seen significant action since in terms of lifting the ceiling on embedded generation, on increasing the size of bid window 6, of relaxing certain environmental impact controls in terms of relaxing some of the local content requirements and so on. We've seen actions which may not always be positive, but we've seen action taking place since since July, and I think that is impressive. But what South Africans want is to end load shedding now, and it's completely and utterly understandable.
Yeah.
It's just technically and financially not going to happen. It's going to take 2 years more of load shedding that we're going to have to live with until these new generation plants come online. And they should have been procured 3 years ago, not now.
Yeah. Very well. Thank you so much for this conversation, weighing in on the energy matter. Energy expert Professor Mark Swilling talking to us this evening.